There's a store in your neighborhood where milk costs $7. Down the street, the same milk costs $3. You know this, everyone knows this, and yet, every single day, you walk past the cheaper store and pay double. Sound insane? That's what America is doing right now, except we're not talking about milk. We're talking about trillions of dollars. And the expensive store? It's called bringing jobs home. Over the past 4 years, something unusual has been happening in Washington. Republicans and Democrats, people who can't agree on anything, have been writing checks together. Massive checks for factories, for chip plants, for steel mills, all in the name of something that sounds bulletproof. National security, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Bill. These aren't just policy wonk acronyms. They're a fundamental rewiring of how America buys things. And the price tag isn't hidden in fine print. It's everywhere. You're already paying it. Here's what makes this moment different. For the last 40 years, America's economic religion was simple. Buy from whoever sells it cheapest. That's how we got $2 t-shirts and smartphones that cost less than a week's groceries. Globalization wasn't a political choice. It was gravity. Money flows downhill. Production went to China, Vietnam, Mexico, wherever labor was cheap and regulations were cheaper. But now, we're reversing course, intentionally, loudly. And the argument isn't about saving money anymore. It's about something bigger, something scarier. What happens when the cheap supplier becomes your rival? Let's talk about semiconductors, because this is where the whole strategy crystallized. In 2020, 92% of the world's most advanced chips were made in one place, Taiwan. A single company, TSMC, had a near monopoly on the cutting edge. Your phone, your car, your military drones, all running on silicon made on an island that China considers a breakaway province. Then came the pandemic, chip shortages, car factories went dark, PlayStation 5s vanished. And suddenly, people in Washington started doing math they'd ignored for decades. They asked a simple question: what if Taiwan stops shipping? Not because of a pandemic, because of an invasion. This wasn't hypothetical anxiety. In 2022, Nancy Pelosi visited Taipei. China responded with live-fire military drills encircling the island. The implied threat was clear, and America realized it had built its entire modern economy on a foundation it didn't control. So the CHIPS and Science Act was born. $52 billion in subsidies to bring semiconductor manufacturing back to U.S. soil. Intel, TSMC, Samsung all got deals to build fabs in Arizona, Ohio, Texas. The goal wasn't efficiency, it was redundancy. A backup plan in case the original supplier disappears. Here's the part they don't say out loud. These chips will cost more, a lot more. Building a fab in Arizona with American labor, American safety standards, American wages, costs about 40% more than building the same thing in Taiwan. And that's before you account for the learning curve, the supply chain gaps, the fact that we're trying to rebuild an industry we let atrophy for 30 years. But the pitch is seductive? Yes, you'll pay more, but you won't be dependent. You won't wake up one morning to find out your national defense system runs on chips made by a geopolitical adversary. Security, they say, has a price. Let's zoom out. Because chips are just the beginning. The Inflation Reduction Act poured hundreds of billions into green energy manufacturing. Solar panels, EV batteries, wind turbines, all with strings attached. Build it here, source it here, hire Americans. On paper, this sounds great. Clean energy, good jobs, energy independence. But here's the uncomfortable truth. China already won this race. They make solar panels 70% cheaper than we do. Their battery supply chains are a decade ahead. Lithium refining, cathode production, the unsexy middle steps that actually matter, they dominate every single node. So when we say we're going to build a domestic battery industry, we're not competing on cost. We're competing on principle. And principles are expensive. The White House estimates these investments will create millions of jobs. But they don't talk much about the other number. How much more expensive energy we'll get when your solar panels cost twice what they used to. Or how many companies will just eat the subsidy, build the factory, take the photo op, and then quietly keep buying cheaper components from overseas anyway. There's a term for this in economics: embedded costs. You don't see them on the sticker price. They show up later in inflation, in slower growth, in products that cost more for reasons that feel invisible. And here's where it gets tricky, because some of this spending isn't actually about security. It's about politics. It's about putting factories in swing states. It's about being able to say you brought back manufacturing, whether or not those jobs survive the next election cycle. The infrastructure bill alone is dumping $1 trillion into construction. Roads, bridges, broadband, water systems. Much of it genuinely needed. But buried in there are provisions requiring American-made steel, American-made iron, even if foreign suppliers are cheaper and faster. The Jones Act, a law from 1920, still forces all domestic shipping to use US-built, US-crewed ships, which is why it costs more to ship a container from Los Angeles to New York than from Shanghai to LA. We've been paying extra for security in random places for a century. We just called it something else. Now here's where the narrative gets uncomfortable, because this entire strategy rests on one assumption, that the world is splitting into blocks, that we're heading toward a future where you can't trust your trade partners, where supply chains are weapons, where every microchip and battery is a potential point of leverage. And if that's true, then yeah, paying more makes sense. Insurance is expensive, but you buy it anyway. But what if it's not true? What if we're building a fortress for a war that never comes? What if China and the US keep doing what they've always done, which is talk tough while trading trillions of dollars a year because both economies are too intertwined to actually decouple? Then we just paid a massive premium for nothing. There's a concept in game theory called a commitment device. You make a costly choice now to prove you're serious later, like burning your own ships, so your army has no choice but to fight. The industrial policy we're pursuing is a commitment device. We're making it expensive to go back to the old system, so everyone knows we're not bluffing. But here's the risk. Once you burn the ships, you can't unburn them. Companies are already locked into these subsidies. Factories are breaking ground. Politicians are cutting ribbons. There's no reverse gear. Even if 5 years from now we realize this was overkill, we can't just shut down a brand new chip fab in Ohio and say, never mind. And meanwhile, consumers are footing the bill, not through taxes, not directly, but through prices. The IRA's green energy credits, paid for by everyone's power bill. The CHIPS Act, built into the cost of everything with a processor. The infrastructure spending, funded by debt, we'll be paying interest on for decades. We're not being lied to. The cost is right there, but it's being framed as patriotism, as resilience, as the responsible thing to do. And maybe it is, or maybe we're just really good at convincing ourselves that the expensive milk tastes better. Here's what makes this whole thing darkly funny. We're spending all this money to reduce dependence on China. And yet, to build these factories, we need construction equipment. Guess where most of that comes from? China. We need raw materials. Rare earth elements for EV motors, graphite for batteries, polysilicon for solar. Guess who controls 70% of global refining? China. We're trying to build independence using the tools of dependence, and China knows this. They're not panicking, they're watching. Because every dollar we spend on expensive domestic production is a dollar we're not spending on innovation. While we're rebuilding 2015's supply chains, they're building 2030's. There's a reason TSMC is building that Arizona fab, and it's not because they think Arizona is the future of chip making. It's because the US government made them an offer they couldn't refuse, and hedging their bets costs less than picking a side. Meanwhile, American companies are playing both sides. They're taking the subsidies, they're building the factories, and they're still keeping their Chinese operations open just in case. Nobody actually wants to decouple, they just want leverage. So where does this end? One possibility? It works. 10 years from now, we have a robust domestic supply chain for critical goods. We weathered a Taiwan crisis or a trade war or whatever nightmare scenario justified all this. And in hindsight, paying extra looks wise. Another possibility? We just created the most expensive jobs program in history. The factories get built, they employ people, but they never become cost competitive. They survive on subsidies, like American steel has for decades. And we lock ourselves into a high-cost economy that makes us less competitive globally, not more. Or the worst case, we spend all this money and it doesn't matter. Because modern wars aren't fought over supply chains. They're fought in cyberspace, in AI labs, and financial markets. And while we were busy rebuilding the last century's infrastructure, someone else built the next one. History is full of expensive insurance policies that expired before the disaster hit. But here's the thing. The decision has already been made. The checks are written. The political consensus is locked in. Both parties agree. America should make more of its own stuff. The debate isn't whether, it's just how much we're willing to pay. And that number keeps going up. So next time you hear about a new factory opening in Ohio, or a semiconductor plant in Arizona, or a battery gigafactory in Georgia, remember, this isn't free. Someone is paying for it. It's you. It's in your grocery bill, your electric bill, the price of the car you'll buy in 3 years. We're buying security, or we're buying the illusion of it. And the uncomfortable truth is, we won't know which one until it's way too late to get a refund. The expensive milk might actually be worth it, or maybe we just got really used to the taste.